Well, hey folks, Relaunch Super German is a fantasy booking of Lex Luger's push to WWE title. Many of you may be wondering why I'm doing this since Lex Luger is my least favorite superstar of all time. Well, the Durbinator, my best friend, Chris, does great NXT reviews solo. He also provides great insight and great content on the Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-view, and TakeOver reviews, and various other rants that him and I have co-branded on, and best friend I could ever ask for. He gave me this as a challenge. How would you fantasy book Lex Luger, in 1993, like winning the title, this kind of stuff. So I like a challenge, so I figured why not? Now, how am I going to make Lex champion and keep these other feuds going? And build to these other feuds like Brett and Owen and stuff like that. And I have a way to do it. So I don't know how long this video is going to go. Because I'm not going to go over every single taping and stuff like that. I'm not going to do this. I did do a lengthy fantasy booking of the Invasion angle about a couple of years ago, which you guys can check out, by the way. It was a 4-part show. I really enjoyed doing that. It was like, I think, 10-minute videos each, but still. With this. So, okay, I may not like Lex at all. But let's put that aside and figure out how I'm going to do this. Let's go all the way back to Mania 9. Lex would still beat Mr. Perfect. Hogan and Beefcake would beat Money Inc. They would be tag champs. And then Yoko would beat Brett straight up. And I mean, you could still do the salt in the eyes and that kind of stuff. And Yoko would, escape with the title. But Hogan would not come out and cash in the original Money in the Bank thing or stuff like that. He would not come back. He would not come out and do that kind of stuff. Him and Beefcake would be celebrating this kind of stuff. And you would have Yoko as champion. And Yoko would take out guys like Tito Santana and take out various guys. It could be lower card guys. He could take out, taking out Crush. That happened a little bit later in the year. But he could still do that. He could still do various things where he takes out people. And then still do the body slam challenge and stuff like that. Before we get to it, you got Brett that felt that he was screwed over. But then you got Brett feuding with Jerry Lawler. And Brett's still going to win King of the Ring. Don't worry. That's still going to happen. Lex is going to have like some match. I don't know. He's going to be like, he could be the narcissist. He could face Mr. Perfect. Not face Mr. Perfect again. He could face Crush or something like that. I don't know. He could have some kind of match like that, a lower card match. Because you still got him as a heel, and you still got him going with, this kind of stuff. And then you have Hogan and Yoko have that match. You could have the photographer thing still, and Yoko could beat him that way, but Yoko would be champion, and Yoko would retain. Hogan would be unable to unseat him. And Hogan would be unable to win or to defend the tag titles on that night because he would be pulling double duty. Beefcake would lose the tag titles. Beefcake would take the pin. Money Inc. could then lose them to the Steiner Brothers soon after, and that would be pretty cool and everything. So then Yoko would beat Hogan. So you got that going on. Yoko's champion, Yoko's dominant, Yoko's still taking people out on TV. Does the body slam challenge, and you still do it where Lex suddenly shows up as the red, white, and blue hero and stuff like that, and slams Yokozuna. And then you can do the whole Lex Express, the whole thing, and that kind of stuff. I wouldn't do it personally if I was fantasy booking. I would have Lex just earn it through, beating guys and everything and challenging Yoko and getting in his face and stuff like that. You want to do Lex Express, you want to do that kind of stuff, okay. The fans were behind it. The fans were on fire for Luger. I mean, SummerSlam 93 wasn't exactly the greatest one, but had Lex won, that would have probably been a pretty landmark moment. Now, let's be honest, Lex was never Hulk Hogan. He never had the charisma of Hulk Hogan. And he was more of a WCW guy, NWA WCW guy, than he was a WWE guy. I don't feel he connected to WWE fans, at least long term, as much as others did. But, putting that aside, he did get a major push, and it was only about 6-7 weeks into it. Yoko is still taking people out and everything, and getting in the face, and you got these face-offs and everything. You had this face-off on the final Raw of Lex and Yoko staring each other down. And Lex had managed to put him out with the forearm, knock him out of the ring. And the idea is, the commentators put over, Lex was able to knock out Yokozuna, but if he does that on Sunday, he won't win. You can't win the title via countout. So there's that doubt. You do it, the little tease of what that finish, original finish was at SummerSlam. Vince convinces the locker room, pun very much intended, that Lex will win the title, but Bret is going to end up being champion again. He convinces Bret that he will be champion again at a later date, and that they will do the Bret versus Owen feud, even though I don't think that got talked about till a little bit later. But Bret versus Owen will be the end game. Lex will be champion. Lex beats Yokozuna at SummerSlam 93. Big celebration, balloons and everything, this kind of stuff, and the crowds and the locker room celebrating with him and stuff like that. And even Bret comes out to congratulate and shakes his hand. Bret then congratulates him again on Raw and says, just so you know, I'm coming for the title that I never got a rematch for. Okay. And back then, they only had 5 pay-per-views a year. So you build up this whole thing where Lex can defend the title a couple times, on TV. Against... I would say you could do a rematch against Yoko. And, maybe you could have something like that. And actually, you do that. You have Yoko have a rematch with Lex sometime down the line. But for now, from SummerSlam to Survivor Series, you build up this whole thing where Lex defends it against, say, Shawn Michaels, and you do a fluky finish, this kind of stuff. And against others. You can have him defend against Ludwig Borga, because Borga was a great character to bring in. You friggin' Nazi that he was. Sorry, you got a swastika tattoo, you're a fucking Nazi. I don't care what you say. But anyway, Lex is champion, but the crowd is already starting to sour towards Lex. Because he's so in your face about being red, white, and blue, red, white, and blue, red, white, and blue. And being the All-American. He's striving for your support, and he's doing this, but it doesn't seem genuine. People don't buy into it as much as with Hogan. They're like, okay, we just got rid of Hogan, now we have this guy that's a lesser Hogan. And that's how some fans would feel. Now, they would be excited at first, because somebody toppled Yokozuna. And Yokozuna, don't get me wrong, getting a 4-month title reign, because I never cared for Yoko getting a title reign for nearly 10 months, because I never thought his match quality was that great. Even though he tried, even though he's a great super heavyweight. But, maybe they have a tease and this kind of stuff, and they can face off later, in a rematch. But Yoko enters feuds with a couple others, and maybe it's still squashing people and stuff like that, and will get his title shot eventually. Then you go to Survivor Series, and as you're building the Survivor Series, you're still going to do the Bret and the Harts, Owen, Bruce, Keith, I believe. At least I believe those are the other two. Forgive me, I believe Bruce was one, I think Keith was the other one. And they're going to face off against Shawn Michaels and the Knights instead of Jerry Lawler and his Knights. But Bret is going to get a shot at Lex Luger. Because here's how you're going to do it. It's how you're going to set the stage for it. Lex has defended a couple times on Raw. Lex is going to go into having a match, and he's going to do a 2-parter. Where he's going to be part of the 4-man team that he had against Yoko's team, and Undertaker's still going to do the flag thing, because you're going to build to Undertaker and Yoko having that match still at the Royal Rumble. It just won't be for the title. So, 4-on-4, 4-on-4. You still do the thing where Owen's the only one that gets eliminated, and Owen's upset at Bret. But you pull the trigger a lot quicker on this. Now, I like slow burn stuff, but you pull the trigger a lot quicker on this. Sort of. Because here's what's going to happen. You have those 2 matches and that kind of stuff, and then Bret and Lex being tired, but still wanting to give the fans their best, are, even though Lex's best wasn't all that great, they still want to go out and have a 15-minute match. 15, 17-minute match. Bret's working on Lex's legs. Lex is using his power, and even though he's got the pad on, he's still using the loaded forearm. And even at one point, to stop Bret, takes the pad off. Behind the referee's back. Hits Bret over, across the forehead. And puts the pad back on. Because Lex is getting desperate. He's getting desperate for the crowd support. The crowd's starting to turn on Lex. Gross. The crowd's starting to turn on Lex and starting to boo him because they love Bret more. Bret never got the justified title shot rematch against Yoko that he deserved. It should have been Bret in that spot. And that's where the announcers kind of build that whole thing and stuff like that. And they tell the story in the ring. Where what happens is during it, Owen, to show solidarity with his brother and show there's no hard feelings, is out to help. Out there to support his brother. And then, inadvertent, Owen accidentally cost Brett the match. And Lex manages to get the victory. Just somehow manages to get the victory. But it's by fluke. It's not necessarily by fluke, but it's just it's via shenanigans and stuff like that. So, okay, Lex, all of a sudden, is champion and has beaten Brett. Not clean, but he beat Brett. Brett and Owen are at odds. And then Brett has to pull double duty again at the Royal Rumble. And you build up this whole thing where Lex, now it's starting to crack and people are starting to see he's not genuine and this all-American thing isn't exactly working. And he's starting to have this crack and this kind of stuff. And okay, the pressures of being champion are getting to him. And he says, I became champion for you guys. I shed my previous persona. I said I was egotistical. I wasn't. I tried to prove to you that I wasn't or whatever, and starts to turn a little bit. So yeah, this is maybe just a few months after his whole babyface turn, but you start to turn him again. And you get to that where by the time the Rumble comes along, you're going to have Brett and Lex again in the match. You're going to have Yoko and Taker, but you're going to have Brett pull double duty again. Because Brett and Owen had been able to come to their camaraderie thing, and they were going to go for the tag titles, and maybe Brett could become tag team champion, WWE champion on the same night. Owen kicks up Brett's leg out of his leg, because of course he does. And Brett's still selling the knee injury, but's got to face Lex later. And Lex is coming in fresh and this kind of stuff, and it's being a little more cocky. And that cockiness cost him. Where they do a finish similar kind of to what they did where Brett and Diesel, later at Survivor Series 95, where Lex is trying to beat him. Brett manages to come back and hit the elbow and that kind of stuff and try to go for the sharpshooter, but his knee just won't allow it. And Lex is trying to get him for a powerbomb and this kind of stuff, and actually manages to get him for the torture rack. He breaks the torture rack out. But, Brett's in a crumpled mess, and Lex goes for it. And Lex is tired too. This is about a 15-minute match, but Lex is tired too. And Lex goes for it, and goes for a move again. And then, goes for a delayed vertical suplex. And then Brett manages to get an inside cradle out of it. 1, 2, 3. Brett becomes champion. Brett becomes WWE champion. So suddenly, you got Brett as champion. Lex is going to enter the Rumble. Owen enters the Rumble. After the whole thing that happens with Diesel. After Diesel's all dominant. Diesel still does his great thing and eliminates 7 people. So Lex has had about a 5-month run with his championship. And he's starting to show the cracks of being, the heel. Because he even uses a loaded forearm and this kind of stuff, but it doesn't work. So, you got Owen. Say Owen's number 15. Maybe even number 14, number 15. So it's after Diesel has done his dominant run. And Owen's beat up and this kind of stuff and whatever, so he's still upset because Owen cuts a promo afterwards. Brett was selfish. He didn't want to win the tag titles. He was only focused on himself or whatever, this kind of stuff. And you still push that angle. And so you got Lex upset because he lost the title. Lex comes in and just runs through everybody. Just runs through everybody. Just starts eliminating people left and right. Eliminates, say, 7 guys. Or no, 6. Because Diesel eliminates 7, so you want to give him the record for that. But he eliminates 6 guys. Eliminates a couple in quick succession, this kind of stuff. And Lex does pretty well. And it comes down to Lex versus a Hart, but it comes down to Lex and Owen. And we're going to do something similar to what they would do in 95, except Lex is going to go over and you're going to have, this where, it looks like they're hanging on, this kind of stuff. And Owen manages to get back up. Lex manages to get on the ring apron. They almost do a suplex over the top. They get on the apron again. And Owen manages to knock Lex off. And barely, just before Owen falls to the floor. Because Owen's exhausted. So Owen manages to win. They were going to try to do the double finish thing, but Owen manages to land just a bit after Lex. Owen Hart wins the Rumble. That's how you launch the rocket. Pun very much intended. Lex, by this point, is upset. I had the WWE title I had the WWE title and I lost it, and I had the Rumble, and they tried to do a disputed finish where, like, they say both of Owens' feet touch the floor, but only one of Owens' feet touch the floor. Lex is upset, this kind of stuff, and Cornette comes and runs him down, and the bottom line is Lex is out of the title picture now, but he's facing off against Yokozuna. Yokozuna had beaten Undertaker, and they had all the schmaz of those big guys because they'd had that because Yoko needed to be protected, and they needed to get a bunch of guys on the card anyway. But then you have Yoko versus Lex at Mania 10. And people think, well, that's an odd choice. What in the world is that about? The reason you do that is because you've teased with Lex turning heel. But it's not going to quite happen yet. But the fans are seeing through the facade. But you have Yoko, who's more evil, as a way to get a little more groundswell behind Lex. So yeah, it seems like a bit of weird booking. But then you build up to Bret versus Owen, so you have Lex beat Yoko. Again, Yoko will take the pin. Afterwards, the debate, and Mr. Perfect will still be the referee. You will have this big schmaz and this kind of stuff. And Mr. Perfect and Lex Luger will start to brawl, and they'll brawl to the back, which will lead into Raw and will lead into a program that the men will have. And so Lex gets a nice title run out of it. And here's the nice thing about it. In the main event, it'll be Owen versus Bret. So yeah, they don't have the great opening match that they have, but they have the great ending match. Owen becomes WWE champion. So Lex still gets a nice 5-month run out of the whole thing. Bret gets a little bit of a run. Yeah, he only gets a couple month run with the title. But he'll get his lengthy run with the title at some point. So yeah, it cuts out a bit of his run. But Bret and Owen have their feud and have their cage match at SummerSlam. And then we go with that. And Owen doesn't have to become King of the Ring for this because he became the Royal Rumble winner. So yeah, that's how you build it. So yeah, that's me fantasy booking Lex Luger and, Bret and Owen. And I think I did a pretty good job. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Because Lex is going to still be a heel is going to turn into a heel again. Because the whole USA thing, people weren't buying into. Lex could join like the $1 Million Corporation along with Tatanka, something like that. I mean, why not? Lex would be a good heel. He's a much better heel than he was a babyface. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think of this. Are you guys surprised that I booked Lex as strong as I did? Let me know. Like, share, subscribe also. It's been Real Honesty with John Ritlin, and I will see you soon.